Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another interview in the Future Proof Your Law Firm group. Today, I am very excited to have Singleton Mathews with us today. Thank you so much for being here, Singleton. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk about you and your firm. I know you got kind of some new, kind of a little bit different things going on, so I'm really excited to jump right into it. But before we do, why don't you give us a little bit of background on who you are, a little bit more about your firm, and kind of where you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to talk about my short history. So in law school, I know this is everywhere. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and when I was in law school, I started working in the state's attorney's office for Baltimore City. And I first started working in their juvenile division. Then I went from their juvenile division to their misdemeanor court, and I went from misdemeanor to major felony. After that, I clerked for a judge in Baltimore County. Then I worked for a few small law firms as a law clerk. And then once I graduated law school and passed the bar, I actually decided to just go out on my own and hang my own shingle. And at first it was a little rocky. And then what I started to do is that I was really lucky because by working in the state attorney's office and working for the judge that I did, I was able to meet a lot of lawyers. And the first, when I first started working, I didn't have many clients. I was doing document review, and I was like, I can't believe I spent, all this time in law school to just be reading documents like this. And then I got a call from an attorney who said, hey, I need somebody to stand in for me because I'm going to be in trial. So I need somebody to go postpone this case. And I was like, I beat sitting here reading these documents. So I threw on a suit, ran to court, and I announced to the judge I was standing in for this really big attorney here in Baltimore, and he was in trial. And the judge asked me, so you just postpone cases for other lawyers? And I said, yes, that's exactly what I do. And as I was walking out of the courtroom, two more attorneys said, well, gee, if you do that, would you be able to help us do this on another day? And that was 5 years ago. And now it's over 115 lawyers that I do that for all throughout the state of Maryland.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about that process and what that kind of looks like for your kind of the daily, schedule of what you do and kind of how you were able to get connected with other lawyers because I know that is a little bit different. So for anybody that's a little bit interested in, maybe, oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe I could do that in my law firm. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think that networking and where you work when you first start is really important. I mean, when I worked at the state's attorney's office, I tried my best to get to know every single attorney that I could, whether it was in the office or in private practice or in the public defender's office, because I think one of the things I like about the law is that you never really know where somebody is going to wind up. So some of my biggest clients who are attorneys are people that I used to run around and get files for when they were working in the state's attorney's office. And then they went out on their own and then they went to different jurisdictions. But because we stayed in contact and I was able to do a good job for them, then they were like some of the first people to call and say, oh, we found out you do this, and can you help with that? So I think that, if you're getting out of law school and you're starting, or if you've been in practice for a while, going to networking events helps a lot. Really trying to establish strong connections with other attorneys is very helpful, and always being polite and professional, because a lot of my clients are also people that I wound up having to have trials with prior to.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think networking is very important. We talk about that a lot. And I think the reason we talk about it so much is because everyone, it's common knowledge that, or at least it should be common knowledge that networking is very important. And sometimes I know it might be scary for young lawyers to maybe be getting into it. But, just putting your name out there, connecting with other people. And like you said, just being nice and genuine, not necessarily asking for people like, hey, can you give me cases or whatever, I think is probably the best way to go about it. So, with your firm right now, or I guess, just the last maybe 15 months, how has COVID and everything kind of affected what you do? Since again, it's a little bit different.
Well, so it's kind of funny because at first, in Maryland, the courts shut down around March 16th of last year. And I think a lot of people went into panic mode. I was very concerned because if no lawyers are going to court, then I thought, well, geez, what are they going to need me for? But what we kind of market ourselves as is not just coverage in court. We're kind of like a rent-in associate. And when I worked in, the state's attorney's office, when I worked as a law clerk, well, you kind of got to be a jack of all trades. So it would sometimes, it would be doing legal research. Sometimes it meant taking, discovery and a file to a defense attorney and bringing it to his house because he needed to get it. And so when you kind of are versatile, you're able to do more things and people can use you for more things. So even though the courts were closed, there were still things that were happening, like restraining orders, which I think they call them everywhere else. Here we call them protective orders. Those things were still happening. And when they pop up very quickly on a court docket. So a lot of times attorneys just weren't available. So they would still call me for those. People were, fortunately or unfortunately, still getting arrested. So people needed to go visit them in jail. And a lot of the attorneys that I worked for were, had pre-existing conditions that might make it very difficult for them to go into a jail to visit an inmate or a client. So they would send me for those things. People needed records picked up or things filed because Maryland is sort of hybrid. Some of our jurisdictions have electronic filing, but some don't. And sometimes something needs to get filed that day, which was kind of my entire experience as a law clerk. Every morning, something needs to get filed that day. So a lot of attorneys were able to look and say, well, Singleton did this for me. Why don't you ask him? And so on all of our listservs and on Facebook, when people ever ask a question like, oh my goodness, could somebody pick up this police report from the courthouse? Singleton can do it. Ring sing.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. No, and that's good. And I guess that kind of, something you mentioned in there made me want to ask another question. So do you solely market yourself as someone who other attorneys reach out to you, or do individuals still reach out to you as well for their own personal cases, or what does that look like?
Individuals still reach out to me for cases. Because of what I do, I really try to limit my caseload because I have to be everywhere. I'm the everywhere attorney. So I will usually take, a few small traffic cases here and there, minor misdemeanor cases, because before, my practice of being, this coverage or rent-in associate really took off, I still was taking cases. I handled everything from, DUIs to homicide cases. So, I mean, there's still people that, call, and clients and family members of clients who will call. But one of the things that has been really great about, what I do now is that by having, over 100 attorney clients, when somebody comes to me for another matter, it's actually easier to say, well, oh, you have this divorce issue. Well, one of my attorney clients is somebody I stand in for their settlement conferences. She would be a great, lawyer to develop. So it allows me to help my attorney clients with their practices as well.
Oh, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's definitely, it seems like a good system for sure. So, as with this kind of model that you have, I'd love to know, what are your plans for the future? Do you plan on maybe, trying to hire other attorneys within your firm to kind of grow this, or what is that, because with your type of business model, I know it's a little bit different. So.
Well, one of the things that I've been really excited about with the way our practice works is that, obviously, I mean, it's the question that a lot of people ask is like, well, if you have over 100 attorney clients, what would happen if 100 of them called you all at once and said, hey, we need you to be everywhere? And so another reason why networking has been very important, especially working with people in the state's attorney's office and the public defender's office, is that when people start out, just like I started out, you don't really have any clients. And so you're never supposed to just kind of sit around and do nothing. So instead of actually having to have salaried associates, I sort of work kind of like an air traffic controller. to manage where I can send other attorneys. So on any given day, especially Mondays after football season, we'll usually have to handle, 10 to 11 cases a day. And so I may go to the Eastern Shore, which is, about 2.5 hours from our home base. But while I'm there, I'll contact another attorney I know who just started their practice, and I'll send them to another courthouse to handle 3 things that are over there. And so that way, I actually get to help a lot of people bring in some revenue while, they're still trying to build their client bases. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. I get to provide more coverage for my attorney clients, and I get to, help other attorneys, keep their practices going.
Sure, gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess like in a 5-year look, what do you think in 5 years? Is it going to be something, or do you plan on doing something similar, or what does that look like?
Well, so one of the things that I'm noticing is that while we have over 100 attorney clients, our model is really based upon the lighter legal work. In Maryland, and I don't know how many other jurisdictions are, we have a lot of hearings that are required for certain cases. And a lot of those hearings I don't want to say don't necessarily require an attorney, but what's happening during those hearings is more administrative than it is legal. So,
Sure.
for example, in family law cases and divorces and custody cases, we may have, 2 scheduling conferences or a settlement conference, and all that's going to happen is we're going to pick dates to have a trial. Now, that may be a 10 to 15 minute process, or if there's a lot of people waiting, it could be a 2-hour process. Now, for, attorneys, we want, to free them up so they can go handle something that actually requires them to be a litigator, who actually requires them to practice law. So what we would really like is to sort of focus all of our efforts on covering every single administrative hearing required by the courts so that lawyers are free to do the things that they need to be doing. Now,
Gotcha.
that being said, as we've been doing that because we're getting pretty good at it. We are starting to get called on more and more to do more things. Sometimes we're called on to actually handle a whole case or, take care of, more things. For instance, some of our clients are, for example, family law attorneys, but because law kind of bounces back and forth between different issues. So sometimes you'll have a divorce case that, now a criminal case springs out of it, but the family law attorney doesn't really handle criminal, but we do. So we'll wind up actually handling the criminal caseload for a small practitioner. And because we have so many different attorneys who work within our network, we can do almost anything from criminal cases to family law cases to personal injury. Whatever somebody needs, we're able to assist them.
Gotcha.
So at the 5-year plan, I would like to see everything almost stay the same way, hopefully doing more of the administrative things.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing this insight. I haven't had anybody on yet that's kind of had a model like this. So it's very informative. And I'm sure people are going to be getting a lot of value out of this.
Don't do it in Maryland.
Yeah. I don't think I've interviewed anybody in Maryland yet. So you're the first one. So I'll make sure to carve it out, make sure no one else comes on. No. But I really
everybody else is boring. Of course.
So I mean, it sounds like everything's going good. And I guess something I'm thinking of with this system and just kind of with things going on, what are some challenges that you've been facing?
Okay. So I think that the biggest challenge that we deal with, and it's something that I think everybody deals with in almost any job you have, is that you have to deal with the personalities of your clients. And so when I say, personalities, I mean, this guy's a jerk or this guy's, stupid or something. It's nothing like that. It's more that I understand being a solo practitioner, what it's like to have to be, you're the boss, you have to run the business and you have to be the lawyer. And so a lot of times communication isn't great. So there will be times where I can get, a Facebook message at 4 o'clock in the morning and someone says, hey, my kid just threw up. I'm probably not going to be able to make it to court. And that's what we do. We're there to help people like that. But while I'm on my way to that courthouse, somebody else will text and say, hey, is there any way you can be at this courthouse? And like, when? 15 minutes ago. Those are the kinds of challenges that we deal with, and the personalities of our clients that, on any given day, and I really wasn't joking about football season, it actually becomes kind of hellacious. There are days that, we'll go to our team here in Baltimore is the Ravens. We'll go to a Ravens game and I'll see, 15 of my attorney clients at, a tailgate party. And by the time we leave, 15 people have asked me to be somewhere on Monday. And so those are really the challenges we deal with in scheduling, and that we have some attorneys who are super thorough about wanting to have everything, laid out in advance. And then we have some attorneys who, and admittedly, are kind of like me, are kind of, run and gun and say, hey, Tuesday, what are you doing? Tomorrow, what are you doing? This afternoon, what are you doing? And so it's dealing with all the different, styles of practice with people.
Gotcha.
That those are our challenges, really.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense based on everything that you said before. I kind of anticipated that was it, but I figured I wanted to ask still. So, well, thank you so much, Singleton, for being here today. I really appreciate it. The final question I have for you is what is one final piece of advice you would give to somebody who's maybe struggling in their firm, or they're struggling to adapt to kind of the newer things that are going on around them? As somebody who kind of found a new path, kind of a new niche, what is one final thing you would share with them?
Humility and tenacity. Humility and tenacity. And I know it sounds like, I don't want to sound like I'm one of these like super inspirational speakers or something, but just to tell one really quick story, when I first started doing this, covering cases for people, this person is now one of my bigger clients. He used to pay me $30. And when I was a babysitter and a swim coach in college, I think I made like $25 an hour. And so here I was going to courts all over the state of Maryland, making $30. And I thought to myself, like, wow, this is really not much better than doing the doc review. But it gave me the opportunity to be in court all the time. And because I wanted to keep going back, and I kept going back, people started to see me. And as people started to see me, I became a fixture. And that's what made me so marketable, was that even though, one of the challenges we still have is that a lot of younger lawyers think that, we're going to get out of law school and we're going to start making six figures and we're going to have a fancy car. That is not how it starts for most of us. And so to be able to, when somebody says, here's something I need you to do, don't necessarily look at the monetary value of it. You have to look at the value of what it could mean in the future. Because when one day going on one of those $30 cases, I ran into somebody who was now an even bigger client, who, got me my own office space and does a lot of things for me. But if I hadn't been humble enough to say, it's okay to go do this thing for way less than I should actually get paid to do it, then I never would have ran into that person, and things would not have been in place for them to be where they are now. And you have to just keep doing it every single day. There are, a lot of people who think I'm crazy for this. They always say you have to have work-life balance. And my motto has been, if you don't work, you won't have a life. There's your balance. So tenacity is important. My dad always said, successful people do what unsuccessful people don't want to do. So the days that nobody wants to go to court are the days I do,
Yeah.
which is seemingly every day now.
God, yeah, I know it. That's funny. No, hey, I know you said you didn't want to sound like an inspirational speaker, but I thought that was very good. I think we could snip that out and create that into a clip. That was very good. And I think everything you said there was very important. Hard work, obviously, again, it's a cliche thing to say, but hard work does pay off. And like what you said, if you really want to be successful, if you want to put yourself above the rest, sometimes you just have to put in more effort to get there. And in the beginning, like you said, humbling yourself and maybe doing what other people might not want to do in the short term is what can lead to long-term growth. Though I think that is very valuable. So thank you so much for being here today, Singleton. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about you, more about you, about your firm, where can they go to find out about that?
Sure. So you can go to clientfirstlegalservices.net. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. You can look up Client First on Facebook, and on Instagram, we are the Everywhere Attorney.
Nice. I like that. I like that. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you again for being here, Singleton. I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.